Hey viewers, welcome to another game with Casual Pro Gamer. Today we're doing another god and we are going to do the item selection here. So our god of today is, well, who are we going to pick? Because I just realized that the god I actually wanted to do, I actually already did. Let's go for Bacchus. Cool. So Bacchus is a tanky, magical damage melee champion that actually has a lot of potential. He's picked quite a lot in, well, in any game mode really, because he is so good at just doing what he needs to do, which is go in first, do some CC, and then run back out. We are going to go straight into the items. Obviously, you can look through the popular and recommended tabs. And, well, the consumables kind of, well, they're kind of, yeah, whatever. Support. So he's a support, which means a girdle of support would be one of his items that he could actually potentially go for. Don't go for sprint. Sprint is pretty much bad on anyone except for very specific situations. Teleport to towers, yes, that is quite good. I mean, he is a support, so having him go from one to the other tower is pretty good. Blink, normal blink, also very good on him, because if you can use your blink effectively, you can definitely get close to people and use your jump in, well, with a bigger range. Because you do have a jump, you have a stun, and you have a great ultimate. So if you can blink in the middle of the complete enemy team and then use your ultimate, that is very good. So blink. So normal blink is definitely something you should consider if you want to be aggressive. For the more purification beats, you normally don't need them, but they can come in very handy. Just like the Aegis Amulet, kind of a similar role. Purification beats a little bit better in most situations, but yeah, Aegis Amulet prevents all damage. And that can be very good as well. But yeah, you are a very tanky dude, so you don't really need that damage reduction. So yeah, beats normally better than that. Hand of the Gods in Conquest, definitely a recommended item. Because, well, unless someone else is going for that, Hand of the Gods can just help your team so much when you're jungling. And since you are mostly in a duo lane, the Fist of the God will actually help you in two regards. First of all, it helps you, well, the Hand of the Gods and everything that's above it will help you pick up things like blue buff, red buff for your carry, or for you. I mean, blue buff on you is pretty good, so definitely should say that. And the Fist of the Gods also gives you a stun. So if you can jump onto people and then stun them, because the jump already has that pop-up, and then you can stun them afterwards, and then you can stun them with your own stun. That is so much CC coming out from just one guy. It is just awesome. Same goes for Creeping Curse. Skip the meditation. Meditation used to be way better than it is now. It is no longer good enough. Creeping Curse, same deal. You can slow the entire enemy team. So if you use Blink and Weakening Curse, yeah, it's just an insane amount of CC as well. Jump and Weakening Curse, same deal. So it does reduce only the movement speed, so dashes and such are not prevented, whereas with Fist of the Gods they are prevented. So Shell, definitely an item to look into. Always Shell of Absorption, never Spike Shell, because, well, it just isn't good enough. And that is, the 15% reduction is so much better than 10% of damage taken is reflected back. Who cares about that at all? Anyhow, yeah, the 15% damage reduction is just way better. Anyhow, Shard, yeah, that's not for you either. And then Eye of Providence, yes, that is a very useful item if nobody else is going for that and you have a spot open, so you're not inclined to get like Purification beats or Girdle of Might, well, Girdle of Support, I guess, then yes, Eye of Providence would be a very useful item for your team, because spamming those wards all over the map, yeah, that's kind of one of your things to do as a support. And starter items, your starter item would be either Mark of the Vanguard or Watcher's Gift, depending on what your playstyle is. if you are like me, very aggressive in that early game, then Mark of the Vanguard is your pick. If you want to be a little safer, get some levels in you first before you want to go aggressive, then Watcher's Gifts does give you um, more gold. So it does give you that ability to just get a whole bunch more gold in the end game. But yeah, it all depends on your playstyle. Of course, this is a jungle item and this is for killing minions, so you don't really need that. Anyhow, seeing from this, the power items, you don't want to shop for power items. These are not, or this is, we will see some of the items come back, but just forget the entire power tab until late in the game. Um, the only exception that you would buy for the power is Obsidian Shard, because, well, in the late game, you might want to just invest in this because it's only 2000 gold, it's not that much, and it does give you a huge amount of extra magical power and penetration in one item, so it's kind of a brilliant item that way. Attack speed, not for you, unless you want to go Witchstone, but once again, you don't want to select this for the attack speed. You want to look at the game situation and go from there. Same for lifesteal, you don't need lifesteal, so don't go for it. And penetration, as I said, the only real penetration that you should get is Obsidian Shard in the late game. And, well, Voidstone does have penetration, but you don't buy it for the penetration. You buy it to help out your teammates. So you don't buy it to make yourself better, you buy it to make your teammate better. So if you're grouped up with a mage in your solo lane, then sure, Voidstone, really good item. It gives your ally 15 extra, well, magic penetration I would call it, but it's actually reduction of magic protection, which means that your ally can actually profit from it. And since you're really, yeah, up close and personal with people, yeah, it's a good item. Then this is where you should live. Physical, magical, defense. Maybe combined with the physical power, so Wall of Absolution, and in the case of magical, the Voidstone, not the Talkiras Ring, it's not for you. Once again, that is attack speed, you don't need attack speed, plus it's kind of crappy stats, so you don't want that. Physical, yeah, the physical. Once again, Mark of the Vanguard, good starter item, definitely would recommend that if you want to go aggressive from level 1 onwards, because it does give you the damage reduction, and damage reduction really works well in the jungle. It also works so against jungle minions. I guess they're not minions, they're jungle monsters. But it also works very well against just yeah, regular damage in lane. So it's just a good item. So Greaves, yes, the plated Greaves, once again, all damage taken is reduced by 5%. That is the one that you would want. So the Magi's Blessing, only in specific situations would you want the bubble. Or, well, you would basically never want this. There's no reason to go for this. The stats are pretty crappy. And the 20% crowd control reduction, yeah, you can get that from this, or from your boots if you really need that, but probably not. I have never had a situation where I needed the Magi's Blessing other than for the hard crowd control effects. If there are a lot of stuns on the enemy team, you want to go for Magi's Blessing, absorb one of the stuns for your team and still be able to do whatever the hell you want. It is great versus Ymir. If you're going up versus Ymir or versus, well, Bacchus, it is a very good thing to have because not being popped up, not being stunned is just a huge benefit for you. And yeah, therefore, something that you should, yeah, you should consider. But only in specific situations, because if people don't have hard crowd control effects, which are stuns, pop-ups, things like that, things that make you unable to do anything, yeah, then you can go for it. Otherwise, just completely ignore the item. Witchstone. Yeah, once again, I've said this many times. Every time I see this item, um, it's an attack speed reduction. That's what it is. You don't buy it for the physical protection. It does have physical protection, but you don't buy it for the physical protection. You buy it for its special, and the reduced attack speed and reduced physical power just make it a very strong item against physical carries, and you can get it if you have physical carries against you. So for just the defense, the 200 health, 80 physical protection, and 20% reflection back to your attacker as magical damage. Keep that in mind. It is magical damage that's reflected, so it does profit from your penetration, which is awesome. So Height of the Nemean Lion, if you're not having trouble as much with like that one carry that you want to reduce the attack speed, just go for this and it will do very well. Midgardian Male, just skip it altogether. Breastplate of Valor, if you're having trouble early game with physical damage, this is your guy to go because it reduces your cooldowns by 25%. It also gives you a bunch of mana, things that you don't really need in the late game, because in the late game your cooldowns will be low enough. Also your mana will be high enough for you to do whatever. So in the late game I would recommend Wall of Absolution. It gives you a little less physical protection than this one. As you can see, 75 versus 60, but it does give you magical power. It does give you mana regen, which is good, but more importantly, it gives you that ability to stack up that physical protection. If you hit someone 3 times, you have 105 physical protection. So in addition to just the more physical protection, this also gives you magical power, and therefore, in the late game, it is better than the Breastplate of Valor. Although Breastplate of Valor probably one of my favorite items for the early game. So, Mail of Renewal, just completely forget this item. It doesn't really do anything. So, just in case everything is bad, so your entire team is feeding and blah blah blah, Hide of Leviathan might be an option. Go for this one, not for this one. The 20% reduction of crowd control durations, once again on an item, is not good enough for you to get this item. It is much better to get this because it gives you up to 20 additional physical and magical protection. So yeah, you can get 65 and a 250 health and some mana. It's just a good deal. Sovereignty, yeah, if if your ally, so the guy you're in the duo lane with, or your entire team is having trouble with physical damage, Sovereignty is the way to go. It gives you an aura that increases the magical and physical protections, but it also gives you a lot of physical protection and a lot of health. So all in all, it's a good item. But if you're like, well, we don't really have that much trouble, go for Mystical Mark instead. Yeah, you can basically choose between a couple of these, but Mystical Mark also does 40 damage per second to enemies within 25 units, as it says. But since you're jumping into the enemy team and using your ultimate and using your stun, then why not use that time? I mean, you're going to be close to them for like 3-4 seconds, maybe even longer. Why not do 40 damage per second while you're attacking them anyway? I mean, it's a great item in that regard. It gives you a lot of physical protection. It gives you some extra health. It just allows you to be who you are supposed to be. So the things to go for here, and that kind of goes for any physical protection, well, that you need on a tanky character. Yeah, well, the Mark of the Vanguard, the Griefs, those are kind of immediate yes. Witchstone, sure, sometimes. Hide of the Nemean Lion, definitely. Breastplate of Valor, Wall of Absolution, and then Sovereignty and Mystical Mark. The rest is all very situational. Well, I guess Sovereignty and, Sovereignty is also situational. Breastplate of Valor is situational. It's just, yeah, see what you need and go from there. Hide of the Nemean Lion is just plain protection, but it also should be used against, if you're having trouble with just basic attack champions. If you're having trouble with casters, it's a whole lot more difficult to, reflect that with Hide of the Nemean Lion. By the way, it's all basic attack damage. So even if you go up against Freya, it's a good defensive item. Although it doesn't, a good offensive item. It doesn't reduce her damage, but it does reduce or does give her 20% of the damage back. So keep that in mind, because those attacks count as, all of her attacks count as physical, sorry, basic attacks, except for her ultimate. Then magical. Magical, yeah, the Mark of the Vanguard, Greaves, Magi's Blessing, already said that. Telkina's Ring already said that as well. Pestilence should be forgotten at all times because it's just a crappy item. Stone of Gaia, meh, probably not, but it does have very high, so the Gem of Gaia has very high, oh, both of them, magical protection, but it also increases mana regen, and this one increases health regen. So they're good, but they're not really for you, because you can just recall. You're a support dude anyway, so you don't need to stay in the lane. You can just recall and get your mana back or your health back, as long as you stay alive. Voidstone, yeah, as I said, if you're with a physical damage guy, don't get this. If you're with a magical damage guy, get this. Don't get the Focus Voidstone unless you're doing really well, of course. I mean, if you have 3 kills already in the first like 10 minutes, yes, go for Focus Voidstone, just do that additional damage. Doesn't really matter then. But you should be winning then anyway. So yeah, kind of a nonsense situation. Then Idol of Concentration, yeah, this could actually be good. But keep in mind, you need a hard crowd control effect for that, which means it's the same thing as with the Magi's Blessing and then, well, Magi's Blessing. If you don't have a lot of hard crowd control, so stuns and pop-ups on the enemy team, yeah, you're going to be in trouble because it's never going to trigger. And the 55 magical penetration could have been 70 magical penetration. Or sorry, magical protection. And even this is even a cheaper item than this. So yeah, you might want to consider that. So unless there are a lot of stuns on the enemy team, don't go for those items that only trigger on hard crowd control effect. Height of Leviathan, already said, go for this one. And it's only necessary if you're having trouble with both types of damage. It is a good item though. Yeah, it's a good item. Bulwark of Hope, this is the item to go for. So from this entire list, except for these two are must-haves basically. But from the rest of this entire list, Bulwark of Hope is probably the only really good item for you. Voidstone, as I said, it's kind of situational, but it's also good. But yeah, Bulwark of Hope is just better. Then from the health department, do you have anything special here? I guess I discussed all of that. Gauntlet of Thebes, no. No. That is, it's a bad item. It needs to be remade. Rod of Asclepius, unless you have a healer on your team, don't go for it. So if you have a healer on your team and he can't go for it, might be useful to get, but for the rest, this is all crap. Gem of Isolation comes to mind, by the way. Gem of Isolation only if you're doing well, but it does give you health, magical power, and an additional slow. So yeah, it's good. It's not bad. Let's just call it that. It's just that it's an offensive item and you need defensive stats, so there's kind of a discrepancy there. Anyhow, all of the HP 5 items should not be bought for HP 5. Just like all of the health items should not be bought for health. And well, I already told you the same thing for this. And yeah, well, the Gem of Isolation, that is probably the only item that really doesn't fall into that category. You buy it for the slow, but there is no movements. Yeah, well, there is a movement tab, but it doesn't get slows in here. So there is no way to well, to say this other than, well, keep in mind that Gem of Isolation may not be in your main tabs, which are these two. I mean, these are your tabs that you need to use for shopping. Even though it's not in here, in these two, you have to keep it in mind that it is an item that you can go for. And if you're doing well, sure, shop at the power tab, but in general, don't do it. In general, your tabs are actives, consumables, and then the two defensive tabs, and well, there all of your items should be in there. Then aura items, these can come in handy if your team needs a specific something. If your team needs more magical lifesteal, more magical penetration, more armor, so physical protection, debuff for the enemies, things like that. Those are all in the aura tab, but they're also in these tabs. So yeah, cooldown reduction, you don't need this. Breastplate of Valor would be nice, but you don't need it. So it's good, but it's not necessary. Mana, you should definitely have a mana item, but normally getting one, so getting, for example, Breastplate of Valor, should be enough for the early game, and in the late game you don't really need it anymore. Of course, if you really want to troll people, Soul Reaver. Just go Soul Reaver. It's just a ton of damage. It has great stats, but keep in mind it is really expensive. So if you're going for this, you have to be ahead already. You have to be winning already. It just makes you win more, and it can be great. But don't buy it as a first item or a second item. Buy it as like your fifth or sixth item if your team is doing monstrously well and you just want to troll people. Unless you have something else in mind, but then you probably shouldn't be watching the noob guide for noobs here. But hey, what can I say? Thank you for watching anyway. Anyhow, the MP5 as last should not be bought for MP5 once again. And well, there are some items here like a Wall of Absolution that I already said would be a good addition to your build. I think it's the only one that I really mentioned. Bracer of Replenishment used to be good. It's no longer very good. You can still use it, especially on Conquest, but it's not a very good item anymore. It doesn't give enough regen to make it worth it, and that's a shame. But that's all I have to say about the items. I think I talked long enough here. But let's go and see what the playstyle looks like. And yeah, we'll go into that in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. GG.